look around in the industry, you'll see enough children today who want to be cast, who are not being cast, and a lot of outsiders, as you call them, or newcomers, as I would like to call them, that are being given those opportunities. I'm used to people turning around and saying, what's that? That's not normal. That's not what normal people say, and yes, maybe in a way I'm a disruptor. The gap between the vaccines kept sort of chopping and changing, like there was no real formula. Then in addition to that, they tell us, oh, it's not just 2 vaccines, you may need more vaccines. I have really liked all my father's girlfriends and wives, okay? Parveen included. Hi, this is Pooja Bedi, and you're watching me on eTimes YouTube channel. Keep watching.
Hi, this is Amina Sheikh, and with me today I have Pooja Bedi. Hi Pooja, welcome on eTimes YouTube channel. Nepotism term also somewhere a lot of actors have lost on a lot of projects who have come from not from the industry, who don't belong from the industry. Like Kartik Aaryan was one such topic, which was like, of course, when he lost on Dostana 2, a lot of questions were being, were being raised that, maybe because he's an outsider, that's why like he has lost on a project. That somewhere when someone, comes from outside, somewhere they feel that kind of insecurity of being in an industry and that, being an outsider. What do you have to say on that?
I say that there's equal opportunity out there for all. I would say that, we have a Preeti Zinta, we have Sushmita Sen, we have Aishwarya Rai, we have a Madhuri Dixit. There are there's so many people who've come into our industry who, and risen to great, great, great heights. I mean, there's Shah Rukh Khan, there's, so many people who've never been a part of this industry that have risen from strength to strength within the industry and become icons. And at the same time, you have people who've been part of the industry, that have fizzled out. We had Kumar Gaurav, for example, who came in with the hugest film Love Story, and after that he just fizzled out, and his career didn't take root. It is, at the end of the day, a lot of luck. It is about effort, and at the end of the day, it's about your destiny and also your potential and also your talent that you put out there. Everybody works hard in this industry, and that's a given. And today I think things are far more transparent than they ever were. I think the casting, the auditions that are taken, no longer is it like, oh yeah, we're going to cast so and so in the film. You have to go and audition. My daughter knows how many auditions she had to go for. How many rejections she faced before she was actually accepted into film, and she's got it on her own merit. Nepotism, you can throw that argument perhaps if people have used their pull. If people have tried to, say, oh, it's my daughter, take my daughter. But no person today is going to invest crores and crores and crores of rupees, on somebody just because they're somebody's child. They're going to have to see talent out there. I have to audition. I had to audition for Masaba, to get the role. We all audition today. It's not something that, oh, it's my entitlement. Yes, the outside world can see it as that, but that's because they choose to see it like that. It chooses them to see the industry in a certain manner. They choose to see celebrities in a certain manner, celebrity children in a certain manner. People are envious of people who have privilege. And yes, of course, we have privilege, but that doesn't mean it's blind privilege and that anybody will cast anybody because they're somebody's child. I mean, you just look around in the industry, you'll see enough children today who want to be cast, who are not being cast, and a lot of outsiders, as you call them, or newcomers, as I would like to call them, that are being given those opportunities. And I think it's fantastic.
Pooja, of course, like what you're saying is, of course, 100% correct. Like, of course, auditions happen and, it depends on the kind of role is offered. But we have also seen at this moment during this lockdown, a lot of fans of a lot of, actors. It's not like, only the Khan Club or the Kumar Club or the Devgan Club, but even for Alia Bhatt or even like, for many actors for that matter, even if they share their opinion or try to support people through COVID or try to support, people and come together and at the same time also focus on their work, they get often trolled. You have personally faced that when you just shared a video of yours, with your partner and, you just wrote like, just not wearing a mask and you wrote you shared a video of it and you got massively trolled for it. Yes. And you were also like trying to like justify your point over there, but still like the trolling happened. So what do you have to say on that?
It's very interesting because, I mean, as somebody who's been in the public eye and somebody who's been a very controversial figure, somebody like me who's done a condom campaign, somebody like me who stands up against governments, somebody like me who fights for women's rights, somebody who fights for human rights, somebody who fights for men's rights. I'm used to bearing flack. I'm used to being trolled. I'm used to people turning around and saying, what's that? That's not normal. That's not what normal people say, and yes, maybe in a way I'm a disruptor because I go in there, and me, my mother, we're disruptors. We go out there and we disrupt a chain of thought, maybe a negative flow or something that is not in society's larger or greatest interest in some manner, or to be able to create positive change. And that's something I've been my whole life. So firstly, the trolling doesn't bother me. I understand where it comes from. In today's times, I understand there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of anxiety, grief, fear, apprehension, grief that people are consumed with. They don't want to see people happy. They don't want to know someone's life is going well. I get that, right? At the same time, that doesn't mean that people will stop living their lives or stop earning their living, right? And it's very, very important for me, being in health and wellness. I'm the founder of Happy Soul. I run a health and wellness enterprise, which is focused on helping people be their happiest and healthiest self. I see wellness as holistic. I don't see it as just going to a doctor, taking a pill and saying, I'm well. No, wellness is holistic. Your emotional self, your physical self, your social self, your sexual self, all of that needs to be in complete harmony for you to be considered well. Mental health is a very big issue today, and we're all addressing that. We're all understanding how important it is to think positive, to be positive. We can't stop the rain from falling, but we can certainly determine how we respond to what is happening. So in that manner, if I go out there on a beach which is open, on a boat perhaps, which is just my fiance and me, and I choose to tell people, go out there, exercise, get some sunshine. Yes, maybe I'm doing it in a very dramatic manner, but at least it grabs their interest. At least somewhere there's a something being put forward to them to tell them, get some fresh air, get some exercise, build your immunity. Immunity is key. Now, yes, when I say something that is meant in a certain manner, I always have this quote, which is, I'm responsible for what I say, not what you want to hear. So I'm responsible for what I said. Now, if your inner anxiety, grief, anger, whatever that's going on within you chooses to want to slam it, to bang it, to see it in a certain manner, well, those are the eyes you are viewing it with. For me, my intent is to motivate people to get fit, to get healthy, and to build their immunity. We don't know what we're dealing with. When Corona first came out, I was fanatical about sanitizing every box, wearing two masks, and keeping everything locked and shut, because people were on the beach below my building. I was taking photographs of them and calling them COVIDiots, and I was doing all of that because we didn't know what we were dealing with. 1 month passes, 2 months passes. Today it's been over 1 year. People have been locked up indoors. People have been fearful. People have been sitting there, in a state of inertia, sadness, grief, despair, lost their lives of loved ones, lost their livelihoods, under severe stress and pressure financially. This is not good for your immune system. This cannot be a constant way of life. And at some point, you have to turn around and start doing things that will start correcting those processes of disrepair that you've set your body and your immune system into. Yes, I have many, many, many aspects to share with you about health and wellness, and I don't know if this is the show for it. But in a nutshell, if I can tell you that all that being indoors is not good for your immune system. Fear is not good for your immune system. Constantly sanitizing is also destroying good bacteria. We Indians have fantastic inbuilt immunity, inherent immunity. When people come from the States, or they come from anywhere abroad, they come to India, they fall ill within the first week of being their stomachs out, or they get fever, or they get some issues, right? We are really hard in constitution. I mean, something drops on the floor, we pick it up, dust it, and we'll eat it. The bhel puri wala scratching his head and making your bhel puri, and we're eating it. We're used to germs, we're used to bacteria, and that's what built our immunity in so many beautiful, brilliant ways. Now, if you're over sanitizing just like they do in the West, your body's losing the ability to really fight back. I'm not saying it's not good to sanitize. Please do so in a logical manner. If you must mask, do so in a logical manner, which means that if I can go to a restaurant and sit there with a bunch of friends, and that's okay, because I will take off my mask and I will eat with 6 friends sitting around me, or I will have a table next to me, which is 6 feet away from me, and another bunch of complete strangers, maybe a restaurant filled with 100 people as surrounding me, and everyone's eating with their masks off. But you're telling me I can't go to a beach for fresh air, exercise, and a swim when there's practically nobody on the beach? Is that even logical? There's logical masking and illogical masking, and there's fear-based psychosis that everybody's in, which is what I'm trying to get people out of, the fear psychosis. Because when people feel more in control of their lives, they are automatically, when you study wellness, they are in tune with their emotions, they're in tune with their thoughts, and that is in tune with their body. And it's very important for me, being in health and wellness, to spread whatever little bits I can about health and wellness as holistic. And I think people need to start building their immunity because we don't know what we're dealing with. Initially, they said COVID was something that was breeding in the cold, and that when the heat came, it would be destroyed. Then the heat came, and then it doubled and tripled in its ferocity. And people said, "Oh, it's mutated, and now it's got zillions of different mutations." And they said, "Oh, let's take a vaccine." And these hurried vaccines came out, and suddenly it was like, oh, the vaccine is not the answer, you need two vaccines. Then there was like, have it 4 days later, have it 10 days later, have it 2 weeks later, have it 1 month. The gap between the vaccines kept sort of be chopping and changing, like there was no real formula. Then in addition to that, they tell us, oh, it's not just two vaccines, you may need more vaccines. Then they turn around and tell you, you can only have the same vaccine 1 and vaccine 2 must be the same company. Now they talk about mixing vaccines. So it's almost like you're being guinea pigged on in some manner, and I just like full disclosure, with whatever's going into my body or whatever's happening around me in the system. So as I said, we don't know what we're dealing with. Even science seems to be playing guesswork, with juggling the vaccines and juggling the timelines and juggling the numbers and, doing so much. So even science doesn't know what we're actually dealing with. So in that eventuality, what is your best friend? It is your immunity. When a virus comes to you, the body's natural reaction and defense is to protect the body, and it sends out all its armed forces, I would say, to the borders to sit and fight this. So where is our immunity today as a result of the last 1 year of lockdown? And all that you've encountered in the last 1 year of lockdown has done nothing but deplete your immunity. So let's work on getting our immunity strong. These are strong messages that need to be sent out.
Pooja, recently Kabir Bedi also launched his book, and
yes.
it, and he's opened up on a lot of chapters which he faced personally and professionally.
Mm-hmm.
He spoke about his relationship with Parveen Babu. He spoke about his rocky relationship with his wife who passed away. He also spoke about losing his son and your brother. So he spoke about that also. What do you have to say about about his book, and have you read each chapters of his when he wrote about it? What do you have to say?
Well, if you followed my Instagram, you see me clutch my daddy's book very excitedly and read out a little message to me, which was in there. And I'm so excited, like, hey, I'm going to read this book. And then this whole Goa lockdown happened. And I've had chaos with HR in my company, from my operations manager to my vendor manager to my purchase manager to my entire team. Either their families have been affected, or they've chosen to resign because they're fearful of coming to work. And so we're dealing with a lot of emotional, professional changes going on in our lives, as I said. So that book is still to be read. Bottom line, I messaged my dad yesterday saying, "Dad, I'm in chaos professionally out here, and morning to night I'm firefighting to keep the fires burning." It sounds odd, like firefighting to keep the fires burning, but yeah, well, two adages used there. But I'm waiting to read it, and I've scheduled this weekend for me to read it. I am turning 51 years old on the 11th of May, which is, I think, the coming Monday. And I intend to read it before my birthday.
Wow, that's quite a good thing. 11th of May and 51, you don't look like. I must say
Thank
that.
you. Health and wellness, it's the answer.
Yeah. It's the happiness, which is making you glow constantly, for sure.
Thank you.
Pooja, but of course you have not read the, but somewhere.
But I know his life. I know his life. And I know, I mean, my parents have had a very open life. I mean, there's nothing about their lives we don't know. Of course, there may be certain anecdotes, there may be certain tonalities used that may be different, that, perspectives perhaps to a situation that did happen that may be a little altered vis-a-vis my mother's book and vis-a-vis my father's book, her narrative of an incident and his narrative of an incident. So for me, that's very exciting reading, because there are always two sides to a coin. And it's always fascinating to see both my parents in their own avatars and as their own individual people, which is very, very important. And they've had beautiful and very interesting journeys, I must say. They've been phenomenal parents in immeasurable ways. And the journeys continue. Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to reading his book.
When your father decided to get married again, you were quite upset with that, entire scenario, and you expressed your opinions, openly. Also you have said about it. So would you like to say on that, what actually bothered you that?
I would say I am, I have really liked all my father's girlfriends and wives. Okay, Parveen included. Okay, so be it Nikki, I would say his first wife, let's start with the first wife, Susan, who then later changed her name to Ishel. And I have a wonderful, I wouldn't call him half brother, I'd say brother Adam, through her and my dad's marriage together. I'm exceptionally close to her till today. We have a group chat. We're constantly in the group chat. We're constantly encouraging each other and sending love to each other on a regular basis. Then there's Nikki Baby, who he married next, who was amazing, and I loved her, and we spent many years and many happy holidays and moments and all together, and we got along famously. Then there was Parveen, who came in, and of course along the way with many girlfriends, we got along with many of them as well, whoever I was introduced to. And then, of course, came Parveen. And Parveen and me had a fabulous relationship there. I mean, if you just go through social media, you go through just a Google search, you will see her and me at practically every party. When Parveen first came to India and she'd come from London, she was, alone. She didn't really know much. And she used to be, at home. And, I told Papa, don't worry, I will take her out and I will, show her around town and I will, take care of her. And I used to take her out for parties and for events and to introduce her to my friends and, and get her, to have a circle of her own and build that whole thing up. And I used to give her my clothes. I used to lend her my jewelry. It was a really beautiful relationship. I mean, she came with me to Egypt when I was shooting. When I had dengue, she was in the hospital, fussing over me. It was a very, very mutually beautiful bonding relationship. And then certain situations took place. And, I have to say this, every family has ups and downs. Every family has situations which are unsavory, I would say, on a certain level. There's no family that's not had internal politics or internal fighting. I want you to show me even one family that's always been, oh, we love each other and love each other every single day of the year for the rest of our lives. No, every family has issues. I think it's the way that the issues were handled. It was, unfortunately, the way things did shape out. It took a turn for the worse. And in the midst of this, I think my father decided to get married. I didn't know about it at that time. I found out about it and I'd made a tweet that was kind of tongue-in-cheek. It wasn't taken as tongue-in-cheek. And I remember my daughter told me, Mama, it doesn't sound nice, just delete it. This is just an hour after I tweeted it. She said, Mama, it doesn't sound nice, just delete it. I said, it's meant to be funny. She said, it's not funny, it doesn't sound so nice, take it off. So I took it off, I deleted the tweet. I didn't realize that in that 1.5 hours, it had gone viral. And it appeared everywhere. And everyone was like, oh my God, Pooja said this, etc., etc., etc. It went viral. I was like, oh shit, okay, never mind. Said is said, done is done. Now, move on. But I guess that kind of made the news and stayed in the news, and it created more friction, etc., etc. My father and I are great. My father and me had a bit of a tussle and a bit of a fallout at a certain point of time, but we are so good with each other today. We're back to being loving and wonderful and hugs and kisses and together time. And, and I love him. I mean, we've had, I'm 51 years old today. I may have 2.5 years of, friction with my father, but that doesn't negate the 48 years that I've had, which have been just utterly fantastic and beautiful. I mean, why would you let a little bit of skirmish come in the way of something so much bigger and so much more special? A daddy's every girl's hero and he's mine.
I'm sure it must be not that easy for you also, though you wear a smile, a happy face always. That's quite good to see actually. And I'm quite happy to see that how you maintain your smile and your enigma and your energy completely. But Pooja, this energy and this compassionate nature, somewhere you feel that is the kind of vibe right now we need in our country as well. Somewhere need that kind of motivation, that kind of positivity, which can overcome a lot of obstacles, because a lot of people have lost their family members, they have lost their jobs, a lot of doctors have committed suicide, and a lot of cases have happened. What do you have to say on that? Somewhere, don't you feel that maybe a positive healing is the way forward to the future ahead in the country? What do you have to say on that?
There was a period in my life, I think from the age of about 27.5 to 32-ish, is about 4 years of my life, where I think I lost every single imaginable support system around me. I lost my so every 6 months, something dramatic was happening. I lost my grandmother. I lost the man who raised me young, who was there with me from the day I died, a father figure to me. I lost my brother. I lost my dog. Animal lovers know exactly what that feels like. I lost my mother. I got divorced. In the middle of this, I was having 2 children. And at the end of my divorce, I was penniless because I didn't take any alimony. So here I was pretty much without any source of income coming in, apart from a little bit that my mother had left behind for me, and not knowing where my future went or what was in store for me, with two beautiful children to take care of. No support system, because everyone in the last 4 years had just died. Every 6 months I was facing a calamity, like a death of somebody really, really close. So I know what it feels like to be overwhelmed with situations and with grief. When people turn around and they feel, oh, you're so privileged, they don't understand everyone has their own journey. It's not that I'm pain free. It's not just I'm incident free. I have lost people I've loved, and in rapid succession. And I've had things happen to me that would have made most people, no matter how strong, crumble. I chose to take life differently. I chose to keep my head up high, to keep a smile on my face, to keep my faith in the universe, to be positive and say, okay, whatever's happened has happened. As I keep saying, you can't stop the rain from falling, but how you respond to how the rain falls is up to you. You can choose to put up an umbrella. You can choose to duck and hide somewhere. You can choose to sit there and cry and scream as to why you're wet, or you can choose to simply dance in the rain. Right? You have all these options in front of you, because it is about how you choose to respond to every situation in your life. You can either ride a wave or you can be crushed under the wave. And what defines and decides that is your state of mind. Martina Navratilova always said that, the game is not played on a tennis court, it's not played, in your homes, or, in your living rooms, or in your offices, or even in political circles. The game is actually played in the 6 inches between your ears, which is in your head. And how you see things is how your life will be, because your thoughts shape your reality. So yes, it is very, very important for me to go out there and help people be their strongest and most positive best. And that's something I've been actively doing. I've done courses in quantum physics and Newtonian physics and meta sciences and energy healing for the last 18 years of my life. I've compiled that into these incredible workshops, which I've conducted across the country, for various organizations, from corporates to Ficky Flows to EOS to women's groups to, Rotary groups to Habitat for Humanity to, across the country, in person, and now as a result of the lockdown, online. And I've been conducting these seminars routinely on mental health, mental wellness, happiness quotient, success, positivity, manifestation, and all of that. When I've been through where I've been through, I know what it feels like to be there. I know what it feels like to lose people. I know what it's like to have loss and pain and grief, and that we're human. And it's normal to suffer, but it's not normal to stay suffering, and that we can do something about it. And that is what I've always endeavored to do, is help people shake out of it and move on and move forward with their lives. And it'll always be my agenda.
That's quite good to hear from your end, and how you work on this. And it's quite good to know. Of course, I knew about you practicing and healing and all that for 18 years, and that's quite good to know that how you're actually taking your journey forward. Before I let you go, I want to know how are you going to celebrate your birthday this year? Like this year, 11th May, it's not far away. How are you going to celebrate your 51st birthday? Because it's going to be completely different. It's the lockdown phase. So
hello, last year was the big lockdown. Last year was March 2020 when we went into complete lockdown. And last year, which was my 50th, the big 50, which I think is going to be wow and it's going to be so special, was spent at a cemetery burying my dog. So and I remember at the end of the day, we'd gone to put my dog's ashes into the ocean, and my daughter said, Mama, it is your birthday too. And I said, yes, darling, but Magic just died. And she says, Mama, but it is your birthday, and it is your 50th birthday, and let's make it special. So we all sat together, and watched the sunset and had a drink, and listened to some music, and it was just so beautiful to be surrounded by all the people that I love so much. And this year it's going to be no different. This year, it's going to be again my son, my daughter, my fiance, all of us together in Goa, and just basically say thank you, God. Thank you, God, for what we have, because we're so focused on what we don't have. We're so focused on what we are going to fear that we're going to lose, that we don't actually enjoy what we do have, and to show gratitude for what we have accumulated in our lives or have been blessed with in our lives. And so it's a time for gratitude. Birthday should always be about rejoicing the fact that you are alive, not about fearing death, but about celebrating life.
Thank you so much, Pooja, for your time. And I wish you all the best. And I hope that we meet soon. And this
I look forward.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Stay healthy. Stay happy.